welcome to yet another episode of Net Right Pod. We've been having very interesting and educative conversations about women, taxation and justice, shaping fair futures. It's still our very first season on this podcast. We are very excited about some more discussions to come, but today we are going to be talking about voices from the community. We will be having a conversation with the women leading the charge on tax justice in the communities. I'm so hyped about this conversation because I have two of my very favorite feminist activists in the feminist community in Ghana, and also, on tax justice. Today, I'm joined by Francisca Nancy Hagen and Levlin Asiedu. I'll let them introduce themselves as I always do. I don't think I can do justice to the work they do and who they are, so I'll let them introduce themselves. Franca, who is Franca?
Aside being the Short Women's president, I am the executive director of Developing Women for Skills and Opportunities Initiative, short for JOSU Initiative. We are based in the Central Region, and we work around issues of economic, social, and climate justice, as well as the intersecting of sexual and gender-based violence and sexual and reproductive health and rights.
Thank you, President of the Short Women's Association. Levlin, who is Levlin Asiedu?
Hi, Benewa. My name is Levlin Kunedu Asiedu, and
I'm sorry for swallowing up your Kunedu. Forgive me.
I work with the Ghana Civil Society Organizations platform on the Sustainable Development Goals. We call it the CSO's platform, on SDGs for short. And it is a platform that brings together so many organizations, about 550 and counting, to coordinate themselves to support the government in achieving the SDGs by 2030. And on this, I also work on the menstrual hygiene campaign that was started about 3 years ago to remove taxes on sanitary pads. And that is what brings me into tax justice. Thank you.
Amazing. So as you can see, I'll tell, I'm joined by two very big women in the studio today. Before we get into the discussions, mind you, you can join the conversations on all NetRight platforms. It's at NetRight_GH on Instagram, at NetRight on X, and NetRight Ghana on Facebook. Join the conversation, share with a friend, tell them to share with a friend. Now let's dive straight into the discussions. Franca and Levlin, you have been tax justice champions under the Scaling Up Justice project by NetRight. What has the experience been like? Let's talk about first your experience before becoming a tax justice champion under this project, and what the experience has been after. I'll start with you, Levlin.
Okay, thank you very much once again, Benewa. So, being a tax justice expert, before I joined the NetRight training or capacity strengthening session, by the nature of my work to coordinate civil society, I had to compulsorily lead them when they wanted to observe or commemorate the Menstrual Hygiene Day, without the thought of justice. It was just to commemorate Menstrual Hygiene Day, submit a petition to government to remove or reduce the taxes on sanitary pads. But at that capacity strengthening session that was organized by NetRight, then I understood what tax injustice was, and the various forms of tax injustice, and then how they impact women in society, and then the intersectionality when it comes to tax. And of course, our tax system in Ghana, well, I was also exposed to it, and then now help me put the campaign into its right perspective, and then who we are advocating for and what exactly we are advocating for and what we should be talking about with policymakers. So for me, that has been the massive change from just coordinating civil society into achieving a certain purpose, and now understanding the core concepts behind what we were doing.
Right. So what has understanding this, having this capacity or this learning experience, what has it added to the fight you were already on?
So what has been added is the fact that that now with data coming in from a number of civil society organizations, we are able to speak to hard facts. We're able to generate evidence from the ground to support the argument on why taxation on sanitary products is an injustice to the woman, especially the non-working class, and then of course the people below the poverty line. So this sensitization or capacity strengthening highlights this fact, and when you engage, you are able to use the evidence to buttress the points that we make.
Right. I find it really interesting that, and also, I mean, admirable that you were already doing the work even before you came across this, wealth of knowledge. And it really shows that people don't have to have all the knowledge or the capacity building experience to be able to do something. When you recognize that this isn't right, something needs to be done about it, you can already start the smallest way you can and, build up from there. Franca, what has your experience been before and after being a tax justice champion?
For me, before, I always say that I dredge issues when it comes to taxes, especially it's involving a lot of mathematics and a whole lot of jargons that I didn't understand.
We are the humanities girlies.
I'm telling you,
I
am for do all the fact checking, bring down your big jargons to my level that I can understand, to go into the communities to dialogue with the women. But then after the training, in fact, during the training, I said that I think that now I am a tax expert. I said that now I am a tax expert because I got to understand how the policies that we have surrounding our taxes are neutral, but then in a way affecting women and more marginalized people. And then also got to know about how much is even going down the drain out of the taxes that we claim that we are collecting for nation building. And so that training built my capacity as a person and also the organization as a whole, because you go back and then you have to take everybody through what you have come to build your capacity on around, so that we can all have one voice in going into the communities that we work with.
Yeah. Amazing. So I was in this workshop with the both of you, and all three of us are working at the community level, as activists working for tax reforms on very practical tax related issues. And so I ask you this question with all confidence, knowing that you have it down. How does women's rights activists and women's rights organizations organizing influence national policy?
I think that let me say this, that I mean, for me, and then where we are coming from, or where we usually engage rural women, and most of them are in the informal sector, where when we are looking at fiscal policies, they are overlooked. And so this is where grassroots organizations like ourselves come in, that bringing the voices of these women on board shapes national policy, because then we know that if I'll take example from what we did, we had a lot of the market women voicing issues around not getting what they need out of the taxes that they have paid.
Let's backtrack a bit and talk about, because after this training, you both implemented some activities in that direction. Let's talk about that, the activity you did, and tie it into how this organizing, influences national policy.
Yeah, sure. So, okay, so if I'll backtrack and then go into it, you have this engagement with not just the market women, or the women, the fisher folks, the fishmongers and all that. You bring in government representatives from GRA and then the assembly itself. And then once the women get to understand that this is what my tax obligations are, this is what I'm supposed to get out of these taxes, then they get to question the system.
Right. So
they
you
get
did
to question the
organize
system.
A forum with, grassroots women and
market women,
market
women, because we felt that, I mean, they call it the ticket.
Ticket, yes, ticket.
Yeah, they take it.
Market
So
tolls.
yes,
Yeah,
but then
tolls, yeah.
they are that's how the market women refer to it as the ticket. And so we went round, the officers went round to find out from them before we even put them together to
Right.
have the engagement with them. And then you find out that some are paying 50 Ghana cedis, but then they end up giving them receipt of 20 cedis. And so in that forum, they were really candid. They you could see that we ensured them that it was a safe space for them to voice
Right. And the
their
Ghana Revenue
concerns.
Authority was
They were
in
there,
the
yes.
meeting. Okay.
And so they got to express their displeasure about that in a way. And then also, but then to come back to how it shapes policy,
Right.
I mean, these conversations are not just had by the by Joshua Initiative or NetRight backing us, but then they are had with assembly staff there who they are representing their municipal chief executive. And so starting from the community levels, them even wrapping it around their F&A, they have fee fixing that they do every year.
Right.
And then look at what is happening the entire country, what is happening within their municipalities, going down into the towns and villages itself to even inform them on their fee fixing. And that is policy at
Right,
the
definitely.
district level.
Yeah.
And so them joining this, one of the things that they came up with, that is from the assembly people themselves, was that they could explore ways of using Momo to make payments for the
Directly
market
to the
women to make
assembly.
payments, so that now the staff that go around to collect this the tickets or the tax from the tax are not taking more than they should take.
Right.
And that is how the policy starts from. And from there we can get to the regional level, and then it gets to the national level as well. So this is how it fits into it.
Right. So it starts like, your advocacy is targeting the grassroots and building up to the national level.
Yes.
Thank you, Franca.
Okay, so for us, I'll still stick to the menstrual hygiene campaign because that is the core aspect of our taxation work that we do.
Right.
Once we got government given the waivers on the duty and then the VAT, the next thing to do, I work at the secretariat, so I had to communicate to our constituents who are the actual grassroots organizations that, look, the taxes have been waived off the locally produced sanitary pads and then the importation of raw materials. So now it is our responsibility to do surveillance. So we do surveillance on a biannual basis to get a sense of the implementation, and then they feed us that feedback. So some will take pictures of the products they have purchased with the receipt, the VAT receipt, to see whether there is a 0 VAT or there is a 15% VAT, and then they report back. Then it helps us engage with the stakeholders to inform the policy decisions. So that is basically how we have mobilized to get the policy influencing done.
Right. I know that these conversations were being had even before you became the tax justice champion, but also before that you were leading, you were one of the people, the organization was one of the stakeholders leading this fight for the reduction or removal of taxes on menstrual pads. Let's talk about how that work was leading to the removal, because the work you did influenced this policy that came to be, that the VAT and then the importation on locally manufactured parts were removed. How was that process like? How was that fight like? I know because I was there with you, but
I smiled because while we were outside on 14th November 2023 at the forecourt of the Parliament House, you were inside the Parliament building,
yes,
right?
I was there, yeah.
We had to marshal all our arsenals because for over a decade, organizations working to improve sexual and reproductive health rights in this country, and feminist organizations and women's rights organizations, had advocated for the removal of taxes on sanitary products. They will release press statements on Menstrual Hygiene Day. They will organize pad distributions and community sensitization, engage policymakers at all levels. But it was kind of uncoordinated.
Yeah.
And so in 2023, a number of organizations approached the secretariat. We want to do this. Can you partner with us? So that was how the whole idea came about. And then we opened the platform for all interested organizations to come on board so that we have one voice,
Right.
and then present one paper and make sure that we follow through till we got what we wanted. So in all, we got 111 civil society organizations signing onto a petition,
Right.
which was submitted to the Speaker of Parliament, and then the Minister for Health, and then Minister for Finance, and Minister for Gender. And we had a match pass. So we're all in our "don't tax my pad," I bled to birth you,
Right.
anything that hashtagged removal of taxes on sanitary pads.
Right.
And we ran this campaign from May till November 2023. And we were so determined that on the day the budget was being read on the floor of Parliament, we had to mobilize ourselves again to be at the forecourt of the Parliament House, while some of our members also had opportunity to be in the gallery to do the lobbying for us.
Yeah.
And interestingly, the male parliamentarians were very receptive. It was the highlight. We had the likes of the Tema West MP. I forgot, Honorable Ashayo Dampton. We also had the likes of Francis Xavier Soso, Honorable, speaking on our behalf. We had the media trooping in to highlight. And when we got at least a number of the ask, it was such a huge celebration. And that is what we have held on to today, to make sure that what government has promised is actually in the law, and then we are seeing its effect on the ground. So that was it. And kudos to you, because before we got there, she was inside. How she managed to sneak in, it was very interesting. And I think one of the publications that she also made, I mean, Speaker of Parliament, Speaker Bagman picked it up and use the famous phrase that it is a cardinal sin to put taxes on sanitary pads. That has been the highlight of our engagement. And every time, whenever we quote this anywhere, we are given the ear. Kudos.
Thank you. Kudos to you too. I mean, we fought, we screamed, we marched, we made so much noise. At a point, like when we were at the forecourt of Parliament, they were like, we need you to calm down a bit, and we're like, no. Then we started shouting. Everybody was, it was amazing that day. So eventually, what happened was that they came. I've forgotten this woman's name, but she's one of the senior staff in Parliament. She came and she was like, okay, we need the leaders of the organizations here to go meet the speaker. That before the march, the day before, we had gone to Parliament to make sure that, everyone was prepared for us. Yes, we had clearance. The police were okay with us. And then they had mentioned, speaker wants to speak with you, but he's in a meeting. So, you have to wait. And we said, okay, we waited and waited and waited. It was taking too long. And then they said, you can go. We will talk about it. And then we got called in the morning before the march that, we needed to cancel the march. Speaker has heard about, he's read your letter. He knows your ask. He's very passionate. He's with you. So just cancel the march and come and have a conversation with him privately. And we said, no. We have mobilized, we have organized, everybody's ready to march, we are marching. And so we did march, and when we got then, it was so very nice of him that he stopped. Session was ongoing, Parliament sitting was ongoing. He paused the sitting, he came to talk to us, and he was very empathetic. He understood what we were fighting for. What is very also a full cycle moment for me at the workshop was that I was doing all of this without also leveling, really being into taxation. What I knew was that these taxes were wrong and it was affecting women very negatively, and something needed to be done about it. And on one of the placards that I designed, I had written, "We need gender sensitive taxation." And I knew I didn't know jack about any other, forms of taxation aside the fact that I am not in agreement with the taxation on menstrual pads and it needs to go. And so the workshop then, like I said, was like a full cycle moment for me where I learned a lot and really understood more what I was doing and other aspects of that. But Evelyn, let me come back to you. After the workshop, you did, I know that it's been an ongoing conversation. I've been in a lot of the stakeholder engagements we've been doing, because although these taxes have been removed, the cost of pads have not changed much, have not reduced much. And this was a fear we had in the beginning anyways. I don't want to turn this conversation into menstrual pads conversation, but I want us to touch briefly on post the workshop. I know you had an engagement supported by NetRight. What was it about, and how did it go?
So I mentioned that the first activity we organized after the session was to do the menstrual pad surveillance to see after 1st January 2024, have there been the removal of the taxes on the locally produced sanitary pads. And then we realized after our surveillance, we noted that the 15% VAT was charged. So we had to call the stakeholders. We called GRA, we called Ministry of Finance, we called the Gender Ministry, and then other stakeholders, GES, and then civil society. And then, of course, we called AGI, that's Association of Ghana Industries, where the two producing companies, locally manufactured pads. And we asked, what is happening? So they gave us explanations that it will take a while because some of them had ordered the goods already, so they had to clear it in the system. One of the company, in fact, there are two companies. The other also assured us that the company decided to bear the cost of the items they had already paid duty on, and then were removing the taxes outright. But the problem with us is the fact that who is supposed to send the guidelines to the retailer? How is Ministry of Health, Ministry of Finance, and Ministry of, and then the GRA engaging Association of Ghana Industries, and for that matter, the two locally producing companies, to reduce the taxes? So they also had challenges working with Ministry of Finance. They talked about documentation, which you and I do not know anything about, because it has to do with manufacturing and then trade and other stuff. So they assured us that in about 6 months, we should see some taxes removed, the VAT removed on the sanitary pads. And so just last month, we started the second round of surveillance, and we still realize that it's there. So we are going to call them. Yes.
Okay. So Ministry of Finance and Ghana Revenue Authority, you'll hear from us again soon. We are not stopping until justice is done.
And this tax, when taxes are introduced or amendments are made from the policy makers, they make us understand that it is for 5 years. So we are already ending year 2.
Yeah.
So we need to give them concrete reasons why they should maintain the waivers, or why they want to introduce the waiver. So if we don't act and we sit down we may lose this beautiful opportunity. I mean, the taxes, the margin is small, but half a loaf is always better than none. Yeah.
Right. So the fight is still ongoing for period justice. You're doing the work. Let's talk about the role of women's rights organizations in policy reforms. We've practically influenced the national policy on taxation on menstrual pads. That's an amazing example that we can already cite. Beyond that, what do we think our roles are as individual feminist activists and women's rights organizations in shaping policy reforms?
I think she has responded to this. One of the things that I got from it, and then things that are still happening, is the power of collective voice.
Right.
And this is what the women's rights advocacy is all about. I mean, taking issue of women in Sankore or women in Jinejine and all that. They would talk about their needs to be met as a result of paying of all these taxes. Issues like sanitation, accountability, having a place to even store their items. These are not just acts from government. These are governance issues, because this is what government is supposed to do. These are the things that are supposed to influence policies to trickle down for everybody to feel safe, right? And so women's rights organizations, or in our advocacy space, I think that bringing these voices together to form a collective. And as she said, for over a decade, we all were writing press releases on menstrual hygiene day, writing statements and all that. But then when an action, that is they taking the lead to bring all those organizations together to form a collective voice, this is what we got.
Yeah.
And this is not just an isolated case. We've had the case with the DV Act as well. We've had the recent one was the affirmative action. And these are all as a result of women's rights advocacy groups coming together to form a collective to push out one voice. And I think that is what we need to continue doing. Be the voice that brings everyone together to push for policies that will affect us.
Right. Awesome. Lovely.
Right. Francisca, Francisca has mentioned that we need our collective voices.
Right.
And then secondly, we need to empower the communities we are working with. But we can only drive change if we know exactly what we are advocating for. And again, there is importance that we celebrate our little wins. We do not have to wait. I mean, when you look at the affirmative action bill, from where it has come, sometimes became the forgotten granddaughter. It's sometimes had to be like the rise of the phoenix from the ashes. It went the highs, the lows, but consistency and then continuous empowerment and engagement made the bill see the light of day. And now we have an affirmative action law. The implementation is also, I mean, the wheels of justice and implementation grind so slow, but we will get there. But the most important is that there is always that flame that bends to keep driving what the agenda is.
Right. So we need to keep organizing. We need to be consistent. We need to be a collective voice. We need to constantly be the voice for the women at the grassroots level who don't get to do the national level lobbying, the national level engagement. That's basically what we are doing as women's rights organizations, and that's what we need to do more of to ensure that we are pushing the policy reforms that we so passionately seek. Let's wrap up with this. There has been, I mean, throughout the advocacy we've all been doing, a lot of what has come up has been trust issues. Even, especially when you're trying to lobby government officials, there's a concern of, can we trust you as a CSO? How do we know that you're not being influenced by the opposition party? How do we know that, you're not trying to be sneaky? And it's the trust. It's been a big thing. From your experience lobbying and advocating, how do you think we can build trust between citizens and, the states where tax issues are concerned?
I think that trust is the currency of taxation. Because once the women, I go back to the women, once the women are not seeing what they are supposed to get as a result of paying those taxes, they would stop. One. Again, if they do not know what their tax obligations are, or even know what's to come out of their tax obligation, again, they will stop. And so trust for me is very key when we are talking about taxation. How do we move on? Or as you asked, I think we need to let them know what their tax obligations are. Once you know, it clearly defines what you are supposed to get. And then it is not just for the people there, but then also for government to also make sure that there is some accountability from what they are taking. So now, if Benowa pays 20 cedis and then knows that every day, because they take the monies from them, and I'll speak from my point because, I mean, they are the ones that we engage in the fishmongers. They go there and they take from them every day. But then here is the case in the market. They don't even have a place that they could even pay. And that erodes trust within the system. And so we need to, governments, I'm part of government anyway, but then the agencies that are responsible for collecting these taxes need to ensure that they make sure that the women or those in the market get due what they are supposed to get, so that they can maintain the trust that they have for the system.
Right. We need to see the taxes we are paying reflect in our infrastructure and all aspects of lives.
So I also take it from the fact of mobilization to generate the evidence.
Right.
So one, if you're able to mobilize, so for on behalf of the civil society platform, we adopted Send Ghana's and other organizations' strategy. For one, during the budget input, national input, we go round with Ministry of Finance to mobilize citizens, and then we collate their inputs into the national budget.
Right.
These inputs are submitted to Ministry of Finance. So the ministry is there. They know this. They've been doing this for over a decade. So even if Send Ghana does not request, the ministry itself writes and writes now to a number of organizations that budget input is now open. Let us go around to the field. So that builds the trust, because you see the evidence from the ground, and then now they are able to sit and synthesize all the issues, prioritize them, and put them into the budget. Once that happens, we are able to analyze, when the budget is read, what came, like our ask. We asked for the removal of sanitary pads, taxes on sanitary pads. So we submitted.
Right.
When the budget was read, we picked the budget. And then we saw, even before the budget was read, a minister had mentioned that, we have removed the taxes on sanitary pads. It was a hooray. So when we go back, we're able to analyze. And now it gives us the opportunity to track the implementation. That builds trust, so that we see the transparency. It is in the bill, or it is in the VAT Act, and then it is in the Customs Act. We're able to go to the Act, we see it, we call GRA, we call Ministry of Finance to come and give us progress.
Right.
If we're able to do that, it means that we are building trust. But when we do not know, for instance, let me give you a quotation here. Between 2018 and 2023, the revenue government had generated from the importation of sanitary pads was about 47 billion Ghana cedis.
Wow.
Now we want to find out how much have been reduced because of the intervention that government has put in place. That builds the trust, that we see that they are implementing it.
Right.
Maybe to take a while, but something is being done. If we go back and the figure is high, then it means that GRA is not doing something. Somebody should be held accountable.
Yeah.
So probity, accountability, transparency are the things that we need to ensure that we build trust in the tax system. And then, of course, the latest is the free distribution of sanitary pads to girls in school. We want to be part of the process.
Yeah.
We want to be able to monitor the process. So civil society on our own have begun the processes to observe the distribution so that we can follow the money, because it is taxpayers'
Very
money.
necessary, yeah.
So if they are going to distribute it, in the first place, are they contracting Ghanaian, the two companies that they have given the tax waivers to? Do they have a certain concession somewhere we do not know anything about? And of course, who are the beneficiaries?
Yeah.
Are they going to some teachers over the girls or some community members over the girls that are really due? We want to be able to do this so that we know when we are communicating that, yes, we are asking for reduction of taxes for these. We are also seeing that we are paying taxes here, and it is being used for the distribution of sanitary pads. And then we can go back to the women or our communities and tell them that our taxes that we are paying are being used judiciously.
Right.
Then we say that there is tax justice.
Right. Thank you so much, Levlin. That was a perfect way to sum up the conversation. I have been talking to Levlin Kunedu Asiedu, who is a coordinator of the CSO's platform on SDGs in Ghana, and Nancy Francisca Hagan, who is the executive director of Developing Women for Skills Initiative. I always mess up the name if I'm not using the short version, Joso. But yeah, to be safe, she's the executive director of Joso. We have been talking about these women and all other women's rights organizations and women's rights activists leading the charge for tax justice at the community level. We've talked about the amazing successes that they have chalked whilst doing this work. We've talked about, how women's rights organizations and feminist activists can further shape policy reforms. There is hope. We know a lot of work is being done, and it's going to continue. And, we're all going to try to be as accountable and as effective and as consistent, and with our mobilizing, with our lobbying, with our advocacy, with holding government accountable as much as we possibly can. And this is the end of today's conversation. I know you have a lot to say. Please do share them with us. Follow our platforms, join the conversations on all NetRight platforms. It's at netright_GH on Instagram. It's NetRight Ghana on Facebook, and at NetRight on X. We would love to hear from you. My name is Abena Beniwafosu. I've been your host for today. Until we come your way again with another insightful conversation, this has been the NetRight Pod. We're still talking about women, taxation, and justice, shaping a fair future for all. See you next time.